So for this next hour, I'm very excited to introduce to you our guest. With us today is Diane Keith. Many of you heard Diane speak last week when she was talking about eclectic education, and I believe her title was Everything and the Kitchen Sink to Homeschool Your Child. And, of course, Diane, you maxed out the lines for that. We got all kinds of wonderful thank you notes and positive comments, which we forwarded on to you. Some said that they thought that was the best call that has taken place so far. So to put you under pressure, you have to
just a little bit, yeah.
And the topic today is carschooling. We can approach it from a human perspective, but really there is a need because, I have 3 children, and I seem to be doing an awful lot of driving these days. And when the kids were young, I was able to stay home with them, and we were doing home-based education. But now I'm in the car driving them to classes, driving them to dance lessons, and I'm really looking forward to getting your ideas on how to turn vacation time and just regular commuting time into a fun and educational experience. So let me, cover your ears. I'm going to sing your praises for a moment and tell people about you. Diane Flynn Keith, in addition to being a homeschool mom, and many of you have heard her speak at homeschooling conferences. I'm proud to say she's also a very good friend of mine. I admire her greatly. I think she's one of the nicest ladies you could ever hope to meet. She has homeschooled her 2 sons for 13 years. She is homeschooling them through high school. Diane lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and is the editor of Homefires.com, which is an online journal and resource center for homeschool families. Homefires used to be a hard copy magazine, and now it's a very active list and active website. Diane is an entrepreneur extraordinaire. She has created Click Schooling, which is a resource you're really going to want to know about. You sign up for this, and every day she'll send you a review of a different website. One day is for science websites, the next day is for reading, a Saturday is kind of for field trips. Really fabulous, terrific information. You could homeschool for free just using the web references that Diane sent you. Also, Carschooling is her newest book, a beautiful cover, really a fun book, an excellent resource. I'm so excited that she's on the call today talking about that. And Diane has also contributed to many of your favorite homeschooling books, like the California Homeschool Guide, the Ultimate Book to Homeschooling. I mean, you name it, she's written for the magazines and for the books. So I want to go right into the call, Diane, to get your ideas. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, entirely my pleasure.
Excellent. And as you know, that beeping sound is the sound of more people coming on the call. So it's a happy sound. So I love the word carschooling. As soon as you said it and I heard it, it just totally resonated with me because it made so much sense. How did you come up with the idea of carschooling?
Well, when I decided to homeschool my kids, like you, I found that I was driving them everywhere. I drove them to park days, to field trips, to co-op classes, to the library, to music lessons, to soccer practice, and even to circus classes. My kids got really involved with circus arts, and they were in the circus for 3 years. And it was those circus classes that sort of put me over the edge. I'm not sure how many people are on the line that are familiar with the San Francisco Bay Area, but the kids had juggling and high wire classes in San Jose, and then we'd have to travel all the way up to San Francisco for trapeze classes. So at one point, we were on the road in the car for at least 3 hours a day, every day, and we were spending so much time in the car that I didn't have time to do any of the academic work, which at that time, because they were young, was important to me, work like reading and writing and arithmetic, the 3 R's. And because that did worry me, I was trying to think of ways to cover those subjects while we were in the car. But not only that, when my kids were on the road for a long period of time, eventually they'd sort of dissolve and they'd start playing games that kind of drove me crazy, like Slug Bug. Do you know that game, Rebecca?
Yes, I do. You have Volkswagens and you have to say what color it is and you slug each other?
Yes, you slug each other. Well, since that time, I've met a lot of great carschooling families who have actually adapted that game to Hug Bug, but I wasn't that smart. So my kids played slug bug, and they'd slug each other, and, you know, pretty soon they start hitting harder and harder. Somebody dissolves into tears, and I'm trying to do that over-the-shoulder referee thing.
Oh, yeah.
Quit hitting your brother. Don't make me pull this car over. and I need to try to figure out a way to deal with that and maintain my sanity and drive safely at the same time. So sometimes I just burst into song, some silly song that would sort of take their minds off that slug bug game. And I didn't have a big repertoire. And one of the ones that I sang repeatedly was that song that never ends. Do you know that song?
Would you please grace us with your music, Helen?
Yeah, okay. It goes, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm not the greatest singer in the world. This is a song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends. Some people start singing it not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is a song that never ends. And it just repeats that refrain over and over and over again. And that would just, it really drive me crazy to the point where I think I'd have to bribe them to stop singing it because they would, of course, join in. But I realized I was on to something with the music. So I started looking around for music for kids, and I found Harry Chapin and Banana Slug String Band and Nancy Cassidy and Raffi and Lynna Arnold and all these wonderful children's music producers, singers, songwriters. Sometimes in the course of these songs, they tell a little story. And when they told a story, my kids would settle right down, and they would become intently focused on the story. And I thought, aha, I'm on to something. So I started to look for stories on tape. And at that time, Jim Weiss had just come onto the scene. And he was producing this wonderful collection of stories. You know, he's just like cultural literacy on CD. And he told fairy tales and Greek myths to Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And so these were very educational in addition to being entertaining. And they kept my kids quiet while really improving their language art skills. And by the way, for anybody who's interested in the Jim Weiss tapes, you can get them at greathall.com. That's GREATHALL.com. Anyway, that eventually evolved to books on tape, and we particularly liked historical fiction because we could, you know, knock off two categories, language arts and history at the same time. And one of the great resources that we found for historical fiction and great family books on tape was audiobookshelf.com.
Oh.
Just like it sounds, AUDIOBOOKSHELF.com, audiobookshelf.com. Not only did they have terrific family titles of books, all of the books, they're not edited in any way, which I really appreciated, so they're unabridged. And not only that, they have literary connections for free at the website that you can download, so they're tie-ins to literature so that you can, and lesson plans and things like that. So that was a really useful resource as well. Anyway, I started, because we're having such success with stories and songs and books on tape, I thought there's got to be other things on tape as well. And then I looked around for grammar, practice on tape and mathematics on tape. Oh. And I did eventually find those as well. And I started to talk to other families who spent a lot of time on the road. And many of them contributed ideas for all kinds of activities and games. And I began to compile all these things. And after a while, I realized that I had car activities or resources for every subject required by national curriculum standards that you could do on the road, in the car, and turn your kids into road scholars. And it was at that point that I decided to write the book. So the book is sort of a download of all of that information that we experienced ourselves and that other families contributed over the years.
In fact, we should warn people, Diane, to get out notepads and pens because you're gonna give out fabulous information, just like you did here, website addresses and books.
Right.
I encourage them to buy the Carschooling.com because it's hard for you to give all that information in just an hour. I know that we're going to give like 2 good examples for all the different categories, the different subject areas. But so people get your fingers ready for writing cramps because you're going to take some great notes.
And a lot of these are listed right at the Carschooling website, carschooling.com. And in fact, if you go there and you click on Luggage Rack on the menu bar, it lists all of the resources by chapter that are in the book. So some of these resources that I mentioned today, a few of them are not in the book, but by far the majority are. So that's a great place where they can go to refresh their memories about the things I talk about today.
Oh, that's excellent. Good idea. So, when you spend so much time in a car with your children, Sometimes these squabbles happen. I mean, I'm glad to hear that it wasn't just Mike that it happens with. Do you have any suggestions on how to promote good behavior and cut down on the, he's touching me type gripes?
Oh, you bet I do. And again, a lot of these ideas have been contributed by other families as well. All of this is documented in the